we didn't want to have our convention right in downtown Chicago because that's very, very expensive. And we don't have an infinite supply of money. I wish that we did. And so we picked a suburb in Chicago, which would allow you to have the joy of the Chicago experience without all the expenses, right? So we got the hotel to give free parking for everybody. We also got the room rate down to about 149, something like that. So we believe that's affordable for everyone or most of us. And also so the city's called Lombard. It's right outside of Naperville. Naperville is probably the big city that's nearby. Naperville actually was known as the I think they said the best city in America or something like that. So this is right outside of Naperville. So it's kind of got that Naperville feel. And the hotel is the Westin Hotel, so very nice and comfortable and classy. It's a very classy experience. I think it's okay for us to be classy. I don't think we have to be ratchet. Just because you ain't got a ton of money doesn't mean you have to have a poverty mentality. So we don't do that. We do everything first class at the convention. We bring first class experts. We have just a really nice experience for everybody that wants to come out. And we also make it very family friendly. And the goal of the convention is to give our people a chance to really network and connect with other like-minded people who are also interested in wealth building, those who are also interested in relationship building, those who are interested in having healthy Black people and Black families. But also wealth is our thing. We cover everything related to wealth. And so it's not sort of a big convention that's built around like celebrities and rappers and silly stuff like that. We invite rappers. We've had rappers come out like D1 and Killer Mike and David Banner came to our convention before, but we're really not interested in celebrities like that most of the time. Celebrities have to prove themselves to us. We need to know that you're interested in supporting the community. We also want to know if people can really learn from you. People seeing you up on a big stage and celebrating you is not of interest. Like if I hear a speech by a celebrity, there's a difference between a speech I see where I'm sitting there with thousands of other people and I'm just seeing something I can see on YouTube versus me being able to engage with an expert that really knows what they're talking about, that can actually help me to do something better, that can actually help me to solve a problem in my life. And so that's the feel of the All Black National Convention. We limit the number of attendees to under 600 people. We don't want a gigantic blowout festival because that would be too many people, would make it too impersonal. So 600 is a nice number because it's manageable, and it also allows us to have a conference feel. So you get a chance to make real connections with real people. So if you want to connect with people who also understand the B1 philosophy and what it means to build a community and want to do it in a healthy way, then feel free to go to allblacknationalconvention.com. The tickets are on sale now. We will sell out, and we do that just because we're not looking for the biggest facility possible. We want a comfortable space where you really feel like you got there and you said, okay, I got a chance to talk to the experts. I got a chance to get up close and personal with the people I wanted to talk to. I didn't feel like I was just one in a billion people, that kind of thing. We don't do that. All right. So anyway, with that being said, let me pull up the slides here so we can kind of begin this conversation. Today, I was last night. My wife and I went to the movies, and we it was for my mother-in-law's birthday, and we saw this movie called Origin by Ava DuVernay. Ava DuVernay made this movie, and it's a good movie. And Origin basically covers the origin of racism, right? So it's about an author who wrote a book called Caste, and in this book, Caste. They were basically making the argument that racism, as we know it in America, isn't really racism. To some extent, that's kind of what they were saying. Racism is actually the result of a caste system, and the result of the caste system is that you have hierarchies. You have these structured hierarchies created where one group is put in, separate from the other, and then you use terror and force to keep the hierarchy in place. And anybody who violates the hierarchy is going to get punished. Now, I didn't disagree with the premise because I think that, and one thing they didn't seem to mention very much is that it's what you're really seeing is the common trend of white supremacy, if you want to call it white supremacy, where if you go to India or if you go to Australia or if you go to England or if you go to different parts of the world, India or whatever, there are these hierarchies that are based on skin color and also based on other factors, right? That sort of put you in a category in a box, and it was really interesting because it was Hollywood. Hollywood's kind of an interesting place. They kind of have these agendas that are a little bit strange to me, and one of the things that the author seemed to be arguing was that when you marry outside of your race, like if you're black and you marry a white person, you are engaging in the rebellious act of breaking the caste system, breaking the hierarchy, and that race is not the issue. It's really the caste system that's the issue. And so I didn't agree with that premise entirely. I didn't hate the movie. I liked the movie. My wife liked and I liked the movie. We did a review on the movie. But we both kind of felt like, okay, they're trying to really sort of tell us that race is not the issue, that it's really the caste system. And also they didn't really go out of their way to explain who actually, implemented and pushed this thing, right? That it was really white supremacy that did this, and then also it was sort of this idea that it wasn't really done by white liberals, it was done by the Trump supporters, right? Which over politicized the issue. Now, here's the thing. Here's where I'm gonna bring this into our conversation today about economics in America and how that works. One thing about a caste system is that a caste system where you force one group to stay in a certain category versus another group is that you have to have power to enforce a caste system. It's like if I have a boundary and I want to impose a boundary or a border or something, I need police, I need authority, I need something powerful to hold that boundary in place. If I don't, then there is no boundary. It becomes like our borders right now, right? They're pretty wide open because there's not a commitment to really guarding that, right? So ultimately, the argument that I would make when you talk about a caste system in America is that it does exist. How many of you agree? Give me, first of all, let's start here. Give me a yes if you agree that America has a caste system. If you agree that America has some sort of hierarchy. If you agree that Black people are traditionally part of the lower rung of that hierarchy. And let me know if you agree with this. Okay, so we all agree that there's a caste system. Most of us do. Most of us agree that there is a hierarchy in America. Now, what my point would be is that this hierarchy is not violated by me going to marry a white woman. Me marrying a white woman does not violate the hierarchy. It allows me to maybe move. I can have some upward mobility, right? If I marry a Kardashian, then I'm going to get to know more white people, and then I'm going to get a chance to maybe do things I wouldn't normally be able to do if I was married to my black wife, right? But the thing about these caste systems and hierarchies is that they're imposed by power, and also me wiggling my way through the system by interracially dating, which was an interesting premise they had in the movie. But the author of the book, if you look her up, Isabel Wilkerson, a great journalist, very smart lady, she was married to a white man, and my wife speculated that she was, and not to say there's anything wrong with marrying a white person, by the way. I'm not here to judge you one way or the other. So bring your white spouse to class if they want to learn the Boyce Watkins version of Black economics. They are welcome to join. And if I see them, I will shake their hand and give them a hug like I do everybody else. So we don't do no hate up in here. I want to make that 100% clear. Okay. I got people in my family that interracially dated, and it's okay. I chose not to. I specifically and intentionally felt it was very important for me to marry a Black woman because I wanted to be a team player. That was my way of being a team player. That was my way of saying, if I add value to the community, if I leave wealth in the community, if I bring power to the community, I want that power to be shared with a Black woman and with Black people. I don't want that, my inheritance and everything to go to people who are not Black. I feel like that would kind of be a waste of energy. But again, that was my preference. So with this idea of a caste system existing, one of the things I think we should think about as we acknowledge the existence of a caste system is to understand that caste systems are held together by power, and that power typically is the only way to really truly evade a caste system. Things like interracial marriage and stuff like that, or moving to a white neighborhood, or getting a job as a higher up in a white company, that doesn't really eliminate the system or give you true power in the system. What it kind of does is it allows you to kind of personally, you can kind of move through the system to some extent, but you don't really have the true foundation of power that allows you to evade and rise above a system designed to control you and constrain you. One of the things about systematic racism, or whatever you want to call it, in America, is that one of the best ways to overcome a system is to not even validate the system, is to walk away from the system, just get out of the system completely, and that can only occur through a foundation of economic power within the Black community. Most of this caste system that exists, the economic side of it exists because 98% of all of us work after slavery. 98% of all Black people work for a white person. Today, 98% of all Black people work for a white person. So the fact that you have to economically serve another group of people pretty much subordinates you to a lower rung of the caste system. It increases the likelihood that you are in the working class or the lower rungs or the basement of a capitalist society, and that's just not the place to be. Capitalism is not a place where you want to be in the basement, because capitalism is a brutal system that really exploits people, and it doesn't really care if you're Black or white or whatever. It's easier to exploit you and to harm you if you're Black, because you're already the society's already been trained to dislike you. So with that said, that takes us into the slides for today and the message I want to share. Now, one of the things I mentioned to you all yesterday was I explained to you as part of your economic consciousness training. Again, consciousness means awareness. At least it starts with awareness. It starts with solving a problem by being aware of how deep the problem goes, where the leaks are, where the issues are. And we talked about yesterday how your family donates about $174 million in a future value context. If you had, say, 5 or 6 kids and all those kids went to go work for white people, you've literally made a multi-million-dollar donation to people who don't look like you. You've neglected your own community because you got tricked into sort of committing to a system that does not benefit you. Okay, so when we talk about being an asset to your family, that first core value of the Ten Commandments, it comes down to understanding your worth and your value and being specific and clear and intentional, and also conscious of where you target that value. Do you understand? It's like, just like when I said, you know what, if I get married, I don't know if I'm gonna get married, but if I get married, I'm gonna marry a Black woman. That was me being intentional and specific about where I target my value. Because if I'm this amazing asset, I'm the great or the amazing Boyce Watkins or whatever some people might give me credit for being. I'm not that guy like that. But I do my best. I work hard. If I'm gonna work my butt off and become as good as I want to be and what I want to do, then I have to be clear about who benefits from that labor, who benefits from that work, right? So being an asset to your family doesn't just mean becoming a great asset. It means targeting specifically who's going to benefit from what you've created, what you've become. Because if I go off and become this great guy and then I just move to China, then who cares how great I am? All of my energy is targeted somewhere else. So effectively, we talked about the Black family and how the Black family. I'm moving forward here. So if you remember yesterday, we did the calculation. I said if you have 6 kids and they all go work for white people, then basically you're gonna go out and make a few $1 million for yourself over the course of a lifetime. But your boss is gonna make more than you, and when they invest all that money over a 50-year period with compound interest, they're gonna make about $174 million from the fact that you worked hard to produce a family. Well, why is this much different from slavery? It's really not. The difference between corporate slavery and traditional slavery is that, number one, I think corporate slavery is clearly less brutal than traditional slavery. Let's be clear. But number two, in this form of slavery, you're getting paid. You're getting paid, but you still have no options. You still don't feel empowered to make the move that you want to make, right? Because you could quit your job anytime if you wanted to, but you can't quit your job. Why can't you quit your job? Well, because if you do, you'll become economically destitute. So me giving you an option, but knowing that it's an impossible choice, knowing that choosing that option is going to punish you severely, that's not really an option at all. You really don't have an option. I pretended to give you an option. Do you understand? So slavery, corporate slavery in a capitalist society tends to occur for those who are the most economically desperate. It tends to occur for those who have the least amount of long-term planning from their family. It tends to occur for those who have the least amount of generational wealth. It tends to occur for those who don't have proactive loved ones who made a plan for them to help them escape that slavery. It's like if I drop my child out in the street and and just leave her in the middle of downtown Chicago, eventually a pimp is going to pick up my child and take her away because I've abandoned my responsibility of making sure that she's okay, making sure that she's going to be safe. So what Dr. Claude Anderson says, and I talked to Dr. Anderson yesterday, he sends his regards, is we talk about once a week or so. And we were talking about how he says that it is child abuse. It is absolutely child abuse for you to leave your child out here in a racist society with no wealth, no resources, no assets. When you do that, what you're doing is you're dropping your daughter off in the middle of downtown Chicago, waiting for a pimp to pick her up at the hamburger shop. That's what you're doing. That's what you've done. Right. And so ultimately, what's the percentage of blacks that work in a corporation? I don't know what the percentage is, Angel, but it's very, very high. And so if you really, really want to break this down, I think that when they use terms like slavery by another name, it's important to think deeply about that because there are lots of areas where they don't call it slavery, but they put you in a situation where you don't have any options. If you don't have choice, then you're pretty much a slave. There's not much difference between you and a slave. You're just a paid slave. You can be a high paid slave. I've seen slaves that make $100 million a year. So don't think that being a slave means that you're not getting paid. Being a slave means that you have no options. Give me a guess if you understand where I'm coming from with that. Okay. You don't have to agree with everything. I just want you to hear the argument. Okay. All right. So here's some methods of implementation for some of these ideas in terms of protecting your children and things like that. First off, we talked about family wealth circles. If you did part one of our financial consciousness training, which by the way, if you go to drboyceelevate.com, you can still get access to that. It's drboyceelevate.com. You'll find that Sunday dinner isn't just about dinner, right? We talked about building family wealth circles where you circle back in, you rally the troops, and you just sit and you talk about economics. You don't just, when you get together for Sunday dinner, you can actually talk about money to some extent within boundaries, of course, and really make economic plans for one another, make economic plans for the family. Quid pro quo. If you take something from the family, you should give something back. Any family, any ecosystem that's going to operate or function properly can't exist where there's some sort of long-term disproportionate scenario or some long-term doctrine of unequal exchange where someone is taking more from the family than they're actually giving back. Maybe that's temporarily true. Like for example, children take less. They take more than they give. Right? Children don't bring money into the household on a high level. Children are not necessarily, in most cases, able to really sustain the household. But the long term plan is that the parent pours into the child, and then when the child gets older, the child pours into the parent because the parent gets older, tired. They get on a fixed income, and they need their kids to come see them and make sure that they're taken care of. And so ultimately, the quid pro quo or the expectation that everybody's an asset to the family is very important. This is how you implement this idea of being an asset to the family. Also, a general idea is never stealing from loved ones, just simple things like that. My father used to say the lowest thing you could ever do to a relative is steal from a family member. The lowest thing you can do as a human being is steal from family. And I do agree with that for the most part. I would say that even when you borrow money and you don't pay it back, that's a form of stealing. And I think it's okay to talk about it like that. Like you made a promise to me that you're going to pay me my money back and you didn't. You stole from me. You lied to me. That's theft by deception. So that should be something that's discussed to say this is not what we do to each other. So trust, because when why is this important? Why am I bringing this up? Well, because there's no economic system on earth that can exist without trust. Trust is the fuel that keeps an economic ecosystem going. When trust is gone, the relationship breaks down. Does that sound familiar? Has anybody ever heard that in romantic relationships? When there's no more trust, the relationship has a hard time functioning. Why is that? Well, because if I don't trust you, I'm not going to pour into you if I don't think you're going to pour back into me. Or I can't make myself vulnerable to you if I think you're going to harm me or exploit me. So in economic systems, the same trust that's required to make a romantic relationship work is the same type of trust that's required to make an economic relationship work. Think about this. Ask yourself this question: yes or no? Yes or no? Give me a yes or no. Let's do a consciousness exercise. Do customers buy from businesses that they don't trust? Yes or no? Do businesses serve customers that they don't trust? Yes or no? Will they let you in their store if they think you're going to rob them? Do banks loan money to businesses that they don't trust? Yes or no? Do employees work for companies where they don't trust that the company is going to pay them their paycheck on time? Do investors, yes or no? Do investors invest their money in business ventures when they don't trust the founder of the company? They don't trust that they're going to get their money back. Yes or no? You know the answer. The answer is no to all those questions. So a lack of trust breaks down economic systems. It breaks down relationships. It causes people to close ranks and not want to invest in each other, not want to give to each other, not want to connect with each other. And the lack of trust tends to breed from fear, and fear is connected to things like trauma. So this is yet another reason why I was really proud that we created the first ever Black financial therapy department in the Black Business School. No HBCU has this, no white university has this. We have this here though, where we work with the best Black therapists we can find to implement solutions for the psychological barriers that keep us from building Black wealth. It's because a lot of undiagnosed, untreated trauma creates the fear, which creates the distrust, which breaks down Black economic systems. So that's why you'll hear so many Black people say interesting things that are very problematic, like, that's why I don't loan money to family. Or that's why you should never do business with family. I'm not saying that you're wrong for saying this because some of your family members have traumatized you. I get that. But so you're telling me that you'd rather go give your money to a stranger than give it to someone you love? Um, Not only does that not make any sense, but it also becomes self-defeating because if I'm pouring into strangers instead of pouring into the people that are going to pour into me, then I'm going to ultimately lose. I'm giving my money. I'd rather give my money to Walmart than give my money to a Black-owned business or my cousin's business because I don't trust that my cousin's going to pour into me. I don't trust that I'm going to get a quality product. I believe that there's a higher likelihood that something bad's going to happen. I'm going to get scammed. And I see it all the time. And it's real. It's very real. Like I've seen Black people who say, I don't want to hire a Black person for this job because I can't trust Black people to get it done. That is a terrible feeling, but all of us have felt this way at some point. It's okay to admit to that because what you're seeing is that this fear and this lack of trust issue pop up, and part of the fear and is legitimate because the fear comes from the fact that you've been traumatized by situations where you trusted a person that looked like you. You were team Black people and you said, "Hey, I'm going to buy from this Black-owned business," and you did get scammed. Or you hired the Black contractor to go fix your roof and they didn't show up. Right. And this is why it's important in terms of building these healthy ecosystems for people to also hold themselves accountable and to be held accountable when they violate the trust. Right. And so ultimately, this is what I see. This is why it's difficult for Black economic ecosystems to grow. We turn our back to the family with resources and opportunities. That's another. Oh, sorry, we turn back to the family with resources and opportunities. This is like a more of a mafia principle. Like one of the things with the mafia in their ecosystem is if you go and you make a big score and you go rob a bank and go make a bunch of money, you have to go but get back with the family and take care of the family. And really, you see examples of this in a lot of spaces, right? Loyal people tend to do that. They go back and they take care of the people who took care of them, and I think that that is a principle that should be sort of consciously reflected on in terms of what that means and what that actually looks like, so we sort of know what the next step is when opportunities emerge and when they disappear. All right, so let's go back. I want to talk about geese today. This is a thought that I had one day when I was running with my wife, and I saw a flock of geese hanging out together. And what's interesting is that there were all these geese that were sitting together by this lake, and I thought about the fact that each of these geese individually isn't really that scary, right? Um, I think I could whoop a goose. I think if a goose attacked me, I could probably fight it off. I had that. That was actually a real situation. I don't know if I told y'all the story about the gangster goose, but let me tell you the story. I hope it's okay if I digress for 1 second because there's a point here. Okay, so so I'm running down a path with my wife by this lake, by this canal, and we're not fast runners. We're pretty slow because I it's mostly my fault. It's not my wife's fault. It's my fault. So we're running, right? And the other group is like way ahead of us. They're like leaving us behind. And then after like a mile or two in, we see them coming back, and we're like, why are they coming back? Like I don't, why are they coming back so soon? And they said, well, there's a goose in the middle of the road. And I said, okay, and why is this goose? Why is that a big deal? So anyway, so we keep running, and I'm like, well, let me just see this goose. And when we get up maybe another half a mile, we see this goose just sitting there, right, posted up right in the middle of this gravel road, and he's not moving. And he sees me, and he starts looking at me, And it was interesting. It was like a man versus man kind of thing because he wasn't looking at my wife. He was looking at me because he saw me as the threat. And I was looking at him. And we're having this man to man telepathy going back and forth. Like, what are you doing? What's going on right now? And he's like, well, you better not cross me or we're going to have a problem. And I'm sitting here thinking, but you're a goose. Geese don't scare me. I'm a black man. Nothing scares me. And he's like, try me. So I walk up to the goose, right? I start walking, and as the gravel moves below my feet, I see the goose. He kind of pulls his feathers up, like he's in attack mode. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, damn, wow, this goose is really serious. He's really blocking this road. What the hell, man? And and in my mind, I'm playing through my head like, can a goose kill a person? Like, do they have some special superpower where they get claws or something? They can pull your eyes out. Like, I was really sitting there thinking, like what can this goose really do to me? And then, but also my manhood's being tested, right? I'm right here with my woman, and you embarrassing me, man. You're making me look like a punk. So I take another step forward, and as I take another step forward, the goose, like he really gets on high alert, and his neck, I couldn't believe it, his neck stretched like a whole foot to where he was like the same height as me. And so his feathers are up. He's staring right at me. His neck is stretched out to the point where he's like 5'5", and I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell, man? Like I'm really about to fight to the death with this damn goose. And and then what I noticed at that moment was I noticed on the side there was this little female goose, and she was sitting there, and she had no care in the world. She had no idea that her husband was about to like get into some old gangster stuff and like literally have a fight to the death with this black man. She's just chilling. She's literally just sitting there looking out at the water. And I think she was sitting on some eggs. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, I get it now. And I was sitting, so I was like, okay, I get it. All right, I get it. You're protecting your woman. She's giving birth to your child. Congratulations, man. I get it. Way to go, player. Good for you. Good for you. So I stood down, and me and my wife walked in. I said, let's go, babe. Let's go. He's protecting his woman. That's some real man stuff right there. That's good stuff, right? And so we left the goose behind. Now, what the reason the gangster goose story is interesting to me is because nobody ever taught this goose that the rules of manhood. Nobody, he didn't go to college and learn that his job was to protect his woman while she gave birth to his child. Right? That he didn't. Nobody ever taught him this. He just knew this. This was instinctual. This was God gave him this instinct. And I just thought about how many times I've seen men who have been trained outside of their God given instincts, right? Who will sit there and watch, say, a woman get attacked, and they'll pull out their phone and start filming, right? Or they'll laugh about it, or they'll just walk the other direction because they've been trained to think outside and to live outside of their natural role in society, their natural role in the world, right? That you might call that emasculation or whatever you want to call it. And so that was one thing I thought about, and it's kind of crazy. It's absolutely insane, and that this goose, had more courage than a lot of the men that I know. I know 45, 50-year-old men who don't have the courage of that goose. Because believe me, if it had gone down between me and that goose, he probably would have got hurt. But he was okay with that. He was ready for that because that was just in him. It was just in him, right? And also his girlfriend, wife, whatever geese call it when they make babies together, she really just kind of knew it was her job to not worry about this stuff. Like I got to take care of the babies. My job is to give birth to your kids and make sure that I sit on the eggs, and you go handle that. You're going to go handle that. And to me, it felt very natural to me. It felt and it was very nice. It's like, wow, geese have better lives than black people, right? They can actually, the woman can just sit back and just take care of the kids, and the man is going to go and fix the roof and fight the neighbors and pull out the gun and whatever is required. And all she has to do is kind of just live in her feminine energy and just relax and make babies and relax and chill out and engage in the obviously challenging task though of raising your kids, right? Which is a job within itself. And something special. There was something special about that experience that made me say, I feel like this is the way life is supposed to be. Not all the time, not for everybody, right? People can choose, people can do what they want. But I feel like there's so much social engineering in our society that we pull people out of their natural element. That's my point, right? The men are kind of taught to be these little whiny punks, and the women are, told to go out and act like men and do what everything men do. No, you need to go do construction. You need to go to battle and pull out a gun and sit in the dirt. And again, I'm not saying women can't do these things. People have a right to do whatever they want. I believe in a free society, but the idea that somehow we've been trained to think outside of what I think is might be our natural element, it's weird, right? So here's another thing about geese that's interesting too. This is another thought that I had because I see geese a lot now. Since I had that near-death confrontation with the goose, I've thought about geese a lot for the last couple of years, and so we run by this lake, and we would see this flock of geese, and even though I believe I could have taken that one goose by myself, I believe I could have whooped his ass. I don't. I know for a fact that if he had all his buddies together. And if the flock was as big as I've seen, where I've seen hundreds of geese together, there's no way I could have defeated all those geese. There's no way, right? One of them attacks you, the other 800 or 200 attack you, you're done. You're not surviving that. And again, nobody taught the geese how to think this way. The geese did not have to go take a powernomics class to learn that you're stronger when you are together. Like they didn't have, nobody had to teach them that unity is power. Nobody had to explain to the geese, like, hey, look, if you hang out with other geese, you're safer than you are if you do everything by yourself and do everything solo. So the fact that we have to literally consciously teach ourselves basic ideas like sticking together, working together, getting on code, helping each other, really to me shapes and explains the depth of the Willie Lynch syndrome that exists within our community and how much work was spent training us to go in the opposite direction. 13 generations teaching you to run away from each other and to be afraid of each other and to not work together on anything, right? To sort of try to do everything solo where you consistently fail because that's basic, old-fashioned divide and conquer. So if we could simply have as much common sense as a goose, then we would be much, much better off. We would actually have a lot more economic success. And so your first gang, your first clique, your first group that you're born into is this thing called a family. People think it's old fashioned. People think it doesn't mean anything anymore. But what you don't understand is that when you do that, when you are born into a family and everybody has their working brain, and that's a massive opportunity to create something amazing. And if you weren't born in that kind of family, but you create a family, well, then the conscious creation of the family, there's that word consciousness again, the conscious intentionality of shaping the norms and value systems of that family plays a big part in whether or not you can win this economic game or not. Any of those geese by themselves is going to struggle. But if those geese all stick together as a group, as a family, they can't be messed with. They could kill a lion, I'm sure. I don't know. I'd never seen 200 geese fight a lion before. It would be an interesting fight. All right. So what's the key takeaway? The key takeaway is that most economic power on Earth, in America and beyond, is accomplished by groups. If you want to win the game of economics in America and around the world, you want to engage in groupthink and pay attention to how other groups operate. Also, collective work makes you smarter and more effective. When you are working with others and you're sharing ideas, sharing resources, sharing networks, you're going to definitely be more successful than if you try to do it all by yourself and figure it all out on your own. Also, strong families are an important economic entity. We talked about that every black family that gets destroyed in America is at least $5 to $10 million in wealth being taken out of the black community. Every family that gets destroyed. So every time you see a family fall apart because mom and daddy can't get along, or because daddy isn't doing a good job being the leader of the household, or because the relatives are taught to hate each other, that's a massive amount of wealth going out the window. I want you to visualize. I want you to then do an exercise, a consciousness exercise with yourself. And I want you to look at each of the family members and look at their individual talents and imagine what would this family look like if they all got together once a week and chose to consciously work together to help each other become successful? What would that family look like if they all got together every Sunday at Sunday dinner and talked about the family business? What would that family look like if every member of the family was trained before the age of 12 on stock market investing, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship, all of which I could probably train them on in less than a week and give them enough to last for the rest of their life? What would that look like if all of them were on code like that and had all those skills, and then also understood the importance of bringing their resources together, pooling their resources, pooling their best ideas, pooling their networks, brainstorming with each other, working hard together, being dependent on each other, showing up for each other on a regular basis, holding each other accountable? What would that family look like if they did that instead of having what you see in some families where Pookie's off on drugs, getting locked up every other week? The sister hates her siblings because of her childhood trauma, so she's a medical doctor out in Seattle who hasn't come home for 2 years. Daddy's off. Daddy's on the corner shooting that dice. He's gone, and Mama's just trying to hold it together. And all she's really got is Jesus and whatever, right? Jesus in a dream, right? Or whatever you just what you see in our families. You just see all the chaos that happens when the family gets split up and divided and separated. And I can tell you, in our own family, I couldn't, it would be really difficult for me to take care of my parents by myself. And the fact that I can call my siblings and we all get on the phone and all make a plan together really makes a big difference in terms of sharing the labor, sharing the cost, sharing ideas. My sister's a medical doctor. We pushed hard. We invested and sacrificed for her to get through medical school. And I said, I'll be damned if all that work we put in the 90s getting you through medical school isn't paying off big time now because she can get on the phone with the doctors and make sure that they're giving mama the right kind of treatment, right? This is something we could not see 25 years ago, but I want you to see it now so that 25 years in the future, you'll kind of know what to expect and how to prepare, right? Because at that time, I didn't think her going to medical school or not going to medical school is going to make a big difference for our family, but it's huge now. It's absolutely huge. So those sacrifices that were made, and on behalf of us, the things our parents did to do things for us and get us where we wanted to be, that actually went full circle. And now they've got capable, qualified kids that can look out for them and make sure that they have everything that they need. Okay, so let's keep going here. All right, so number two, here's the second commandment. So remember, the first one is always be an asset to your family. You may want to pay your kids to learn these 10 commandments, but I want them to learn what they mean. I want them to understand what they mean. I don't want them to just memorize them, right? I want them to internalize them. That's why I want to spend time on each one. I'm going to spend probably about an hour or something, 45 minutes to an hour, explaining what it looks like in different forms, how to implement this, why it's important, things like that. Because if you understand why something matters, you're going to understand, or you're going to be more likely to memorize what the what is. You're going to remember what the what is because you know the why, right? So I need you to know why this matters, not just what it is. Okay. So always be an asset to your family. We've talked about what that means and why that's important. So let's move on to the next one. This is another commandment that I think is really important. If Black people started doing this more often, we would elevate by the trillions within less than a generation. Buying Black whenever possible. Now let's talk about this. First, let's talk about what it means to be economically woke. Okay. Now, remember, we're doing financial consciousness training. And the reason we're doing financial consciousness training is because the capitalist society tends to exploit those who are not conscious of where their money's going. If you're not paying attention to how much you're doling out and whatever's going on in your economic life, then it's very easy for someone who is conscious to exploit you. Let me give you an example. I was on a cruise ship one time. I don't know if I ever told you all, but I'm actually a pretty good poker player. I like poker. I don't like gambling because gambling is a bad economic habit to get into. But I do like poker. And so I actually at one point thought about possibly even trying to play professionally because it's a great game of strategy, psychology, and math. Those are all three things I'm pretty good at, and I've won big tournaments with hundreds of people in them. Literally gotten first place out of 700 or 800 people, and so I became really astute with poker. And I remember when I was first learning how to play, and I was on this cruise ship, and on this ship they had this big poker tournament, and they were playing every single day. And I remember sitting there at the table, and there was this lady who was clearly rich, and she had this big old expensive diamond ring on, and her and her husband would just, making it rain on the cruise, throwing money around. She would always be kind of half drunk. and she was just playing. And when you play drunk poker, you just kind of do stupid stuff. You just bet a lot of money and kind of hope you get lucky or whatever. And I remember noticing that there was a guy who was sitting there, and I could tell this guy did not have a lot of money. He was not a rich guy. He was just a regular working class dude, and he was sitting there watching, specifically watching the lady who was half drunk, being loud and gaudy with the big diamond ring, who was betting all kinds of money, right? Now, this guy wasn't going to rob her or harm her or assault her, but what he was doing was he was robbing her in the poker table. I noticed that he was placing bets specifically in such a way that it would tempt her to go ahead and bet it all or go all in or whatever. And this guy was making thousands of dollars off this lady right in front of my eyes. I was just watching this like, wow, she doesn't even know she's getting played. Well, why? Well, because she's not conscious. She's unconscious because she's half drunk. She's not paying attention. She doesn't know what's going on. And this guy is very conscious, right? So he's operating on level 5. She's operating on level 2. She's playing checkers. He's playing chess. This guy walked away with thousands of dollars of this lady's money. I don't know if it mattered for her or not. She seemed like she had a lot of money, so maybe she just didn't care. But that's what I see when I see capitalist consciousness, in the sense of that there are people who are watching your every move. There are people who are watching everything you do. There are social media companies that collect insane amounts of data about every single habit you have, every conversation you have, everything you're talking about with your friends on social media, and they're watching you carefully. They're very conscious about watching you so they can figure out how to sell things to you. They're like, oh, you were talking to your cousin in a Facebook chat, a private Facebook chat, about getting a new car. Well, we can run an ad for new cars in order to get you to go and shop for a car. Or we notice that you tend to click on certain things. You tend to like certain kinds of content. So we're going to market stuff to you that is based on what you tend to click on, what you tend to like. So they're operating at a really high level of consciousness, and you're sort of unconsciously just sort of living your life. And this happens in so many other spaces. It's ridiculous. I'm not going to lay out every example because I'd be talking all day. But if you ever seen that video, how many of you saw that video, How to Sell to the Negro? Has anybody ever seen that video? Ebony Magazine made that video in the 1950s, where they were trying to basically partner with white corporations to convince them that they should be selling more things to Black people. And so what they were doing was the economic consciousness exercise of specifically observing the behavior of Black people when they go shopping. Things that these people that were being studied, they didn't know they were being studied. They weren't conscious of the fact that they were being studied. But the people that were doing the studying were saying, look, if you notice this and notice that they tend to like quality. They tend to be insulted if you act like they can't afford it, right? And they were telling them like, okay, these are the things you do and the things you don't do. Almost like a guy coaching another guy on how to get a girl to sleep with him, or a woman coaching a guy on how to get that man to marry you, right? Like, here's what you do. Here's how they do this and they do that, right? So the conscious person has an advantage over the unconscious person. So to me, when I think about that term, what it means to be economically woke or financially woke or having financial consciousness, again, which is something I'd never seen this concept in a textbook anywhere. I've never seen it taught at a university anywhere, but I personally think financial consciousness should be part of the standardized curriculum for every Black person that wants to be economically successful and not get exploited, is because so much of our money gets lost because we're not conscious of how it's being taken. And then what happens is you wake up just like an unconscious person, a person who gets drunk and goes to sleep. They're unconscious all night, and they wake up and their pockets are empty. Maybe other horrible things have happened to them while they were sleeping, and they're like, I don't know what happened. Somebody took something from me, right? But I don't know how it happened because I wasn't conscious the entire time they were doing it, and I wasn't conscious the entire time they were planning it. Do you understand? Right? So consciousness, financial consciousness, very important when it comes to protecting your wealth and acquiring wealth. Okay. So a lot of people, so when you talk about what it means to be economically woke, financial consciousness is part of it. Understanding how money works, being conscious of that, knowing where money's located. I've mentioned to you all the 4 steps to building wealth. The four steps are financial consciousness, knowing where the money is, knowing where money resides. Number two is making a plan to acquire the money. You have to have a plan. Very few people get wealthy in a capitalist society by accident. The only people that get wealthy by accident typically are people who were fortunate enough to have a financially conscious person that came before them in their own family who left them an inheritance. That's what you want to do for your kids or grandkids. If you really love them, you'll really be thinking about these things. And this might being judgmental, but I think it's okay in this particular context. You have to sort of have somebody in your family that's conscious of that. Number three is executing the plan. A lot of people make a plan and they don't execute the plan, right? They don't follow through. They don't do anything. They just say what they're going to do and they talk about the plan, but they don't actually follow through. Most wealth accumulation is something that occurs over a long period of time. Usually, building wealth takes time, and that means you're spending time doing the same thing over and over and over again to the point where you engage in what is called an accumulation process. The accumulation process is like stacking dollar bills on top of each other. Next thing you know, you got a lot of dollar bills. Or like if I want to walk to California and if I walk 20 miles a day, and I do that every single day, then after however many weeks, I would be in California. Do you understand? So it's the accumulation process that gets you there. And then once you get there, the fourth step is you have to protect your wealth. Once you get wealth, you have to be conscious in order to protect it. A person who has wealth who's not financially conscious will typically lose their wealth to someone who has a greater degree of consciousness than they do. That's why rappers are terrible people to learn wealth from, because a lot of rappers are not financially conscious. Many of them are on drugs or they drink a lot, which kills your consciousness. Also, they are not conscious of the role that they're playing in society in terms of like they'll still think that they're products of their environment when actually now your environment is a product of you because you become that powerful. They're not conscious of that in many cases, not all of them, but a lot of them. And then also that lack of consciousness in terms of understanding that a wealthy person can't engage in a street lifestyle the way a a guy can. A guy with nothing to lose can't, he can be about that street life and about that thug life and everything else. Ask Tupac. A guy with nothing to lose can live the thug life and it's not such a big deal. But a guy who has everything to lose, who tries to live the same thug life, is going to get killed, right? Because you got a lot to lose, and there are lots of people that are going to try to take things from you, whether it's your money or your life. And unfortunately, Tupac learned that the hard way. There are many other examples, not just him. Okay, so moving on. Becoming economically woke. We mentioned this earlier. It's about knowing where the money's located, how to obtain the money, and then how to protect it. We talked about that just now, so I'm going to move on from that. Okay, so the four steps to economic power. Let's go through this really quickly because we just talked about that. One, learn where the money is. A lot of people, you'd be amazed how many people want to have money and don't know where money is. They don't know how money's made. And in fact, I want to warn you specifically about sort of taking what I call the black box approach to economic success in the black community. The black box approach looks like this. Here's what the black box approach looks like to me. The black box approach is where somebody says, one of your kids says, "Hey, I want to have some money. How do I get money?" And you say, "Oh, well, go get a job. Fill out a job application, and then you'll get money." And then that's it. That's the conversation. The rest of the conversation is, well, where are the jobs located, and how do I fill out the job application, and how do I do the job interview? And what you've basically done when that's the depth of your whole conversation is you've pretty much made yourself, in my view, you've made yourself a white supremacist. You pretty much made white people, in my opinion, this is because we're talking about black economics. In that case, you've made white people into your economic gods. Why is that? Well, because there's nothing inherently economically beneficial about filling out a job application. There's nothing about filling out that piece of paper that somehow generates money. There's no product being sold to a customer because you filled out a piece of paper. I could take this piece of paper in front of me and say, "Oh, this is a job application. Let me fill it out." Oh, cha-ching, money's coming out of my bank account. Imagine if every time I wrote down something on a piece of paper, there was money magically appearing in my bank account or whatever, right? There's nothing about the job application process that generates the money you're going to get paid. The money you get paid comes from the fact that somebody that you serve, somebody that you work for, mainly your boss, actually built a business, went out and acquired a customer, produced a product, and sold that product to somebody else. That's where the money's coming from. And I'm just flabbergasted by how many millions of people don't understand that. And I'm not saying that it's bad if you don't understand it, because a lot of people don't. Join the club. There's millions of people out there like that. I just don't want you or your kids to be in that category. I'm the uppity Negro that wants something better for you. I want you to be in a space where you're like, no, that's not how we operate. That might be how everybody else does it, but that's not how we think. The money that you get from your boss does not come from the fact that you worked. People will literally think that I made money because I did the work. There's nothing about working. There's nothing about doing a job interview, and there's nothing about filling out a piece of paper that generates income. Nothing. You doing the work only generates income if somebody has instructed you to do specific work that's going to lead to the production, distribution, or monetization of some sort of product. And if that production, distribution, and monetization process does not work, then you will not get paid. You will not get paid because there's no money to pay you. Your boss really isn't your boss. Your boss is actually the customer that's actually giving money to the boss to pass it to you. So what you're doing when you fill out the job application is you are going through the middleman, and you're going into what I call the black box approach to Black economics, which is I fill out this piece of paper, I do what this man says, and then magically money just comes out and I have no idea where it came from. I'm going to propose the seemingly radical idea that this is an incredibly risky way to think about your economics. It's very risky to think this way because what you've basically done in that situation is you have positioned yourself to give complete trust and control of your economic status to someone who may or may not have your best interests at heart. Let me tell you a time where my lack of financial consciousness got to me. I had an excuse. I was 7 years old. So that's my excuse. Any other dumb things I've done in my life, which is in the thousands, I have no excuse because I wasn't a baby anymore. They say God protects babies and fools. I haven't been a baby for a long time. So I've definitely been a fool on many occasions. But here's what happened when I was 7. So when I was 7, I I used to go to church a lot when I was 7, and I don't go to church anymore. Don't make fun of me, but I probably would be defined as a heathen. But I love God. I believe in God and all that. So I'm not, out worshiping the devil or nothing. So I used to go to this evangelist church, and they used to have all these little games like memorizing books of the Bible, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, First and Second Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, right? Like I used to learn, all this stuff, right? And the reason I did it was because they would give you prizes, right? They would give you like a big gigantic chocolate bar, or I remember coming home with a pumpkin pie, or just all this cool stuff that you would get for winning these games, and it was really cool. I think the church was run by white people, but they were nice white people. And anyway, so one day I won another contest, and the prize was that you could put your hand in a big old thing full of pennies and pull out as many pennies as you could, right? And you get to keep whatever amount of money you pulled out of that. Now, obviously, as a 7-year-old, that's a big deal, man. I'm about to go get paid. And so I'm telling my friends about it, and we're on the bus going home from church, and we're gonna do the thing the next Sunday. And there was this boy, his name was Warren. I'll never forget Warren because if I see him, I'm going to find him and kick him in his ass. So let me tell you what Warren did. Warren was 10. Now, when you're 7, a 10-year-old is like, that's the OG. Like he's this big Warren. He's like in my mind, he's like a grown man, so I'm taking advice from Big Warren. And you know what Warren says? He says, well, your hands are little. And so you can't grab that many pennies. He said, let me take your place, and I'll put my hand in there. My hand's bigger. I'll get more money, and then we'll share it, and you'll have more money. And I was like, oh, I don't know that. I don't know about that. Right. And he's like, no, come on, let me do it. Let me do it. And his brother was sitting there. I'll never forget. His brother was an accomplice in this terrible crime that traumatized a 7-year-old boy, right, to the point where he's talking about this story 45 years later. And so eventually I reluctantly, so this is where I was learning that you got to listen to your instincts. I used to not listen to my instincts. Now I do, right? My instincts told me that I was being played for a sucker, but the other part of me was like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, I trust Warren. Maybe Warren, is making some sense here. So you know what I did? I let this Negro go to church and take my spot. And he had put his hand in there and he grabbed all these pennies. And so I'm on the bus later on, like, all right, so we're gonna split the money, right? Where's the money at? And he's like, oh, I don't have it. And I'm like, well, where? Like, what happened? Like, did Jesus take the money? Like, what happened? And he was giving me all these BS reasons why he did not have my money. And it took me a little while to figure out that he was never going to give me my money. Because I would see him on the bus each week and I would say, hey, where's my money? And he never gave me my money. And that was just a terrible thing to do to a 7-year-old. That was that, you know what that did? That traumatized me and it impacted the amount of trust I can have in doing business with other people that look like me, right? That was I'm really hurt by that, right? But here's the point. Here's where I'm getting at with this crazy, ridiculous story. Don't make fun of me, but this made me really sad is that what happened was I had a process where I had the connect. I had the direct connect. I could go right in, grab my own money, pull out what I could, and that was it. Instead, I let Warren take the role that I believe white America takes for black people. He inserted himself as the middleman, which meant I had to trust that whatever he was telling me was gonna be true. I had to believe him. If he'd come back and said, "Well, I only pulled out 3 pennies," I would have had to take his word for it. When really the incentive of capitalism in general is that the middleman takes a bigger cut than you might expect. And so a lot of times the reason that you don't see people working their way to wealth in America, the reason that working does not make you wealthy is because corporate America is taking their cut. Did you know they just did a study where they said that all this inflation and everything that we've been dealing with, a lot of it came from corporate profiteering. The same time, pay attention now, Mark Zuckerberg, who runs Facebook, this entity that we all make rich, he made $28 billion last week. He made $28 billion last week. And let me tell you why Mark Zuckerberg made $28 billion last week. He made $28 billion because Facebook stock on one day shot up 20%. And the reason it shot up 20% is because Zuckerberg, for the past year, has done what he called the year of efficiency. You see, a year and a half ago, this is where money is being made right in front of your eyes. Facebook stock was not worth maybe, it was about 40% in terms of price that it is right now. Right, year and a half ago, and I bought that stock. Then I told you all to buy it. I mentioned this in class. I don't know how many of you did, but I hope that some of you did. And so Facebook stock was trading at less than half of what it is right now. So Zuckerberg, in order to do his job, which was to take care of the shareholders, he incorporated something called the year of efficiency. Well, during the year of efficiency, guess what he did? He laid off a bunch of workers, thousands of them. He cut their salary, right? He strong-armed them. And because of this year of efficiency, there was a blockbuster year for the shareholders. So the shareholders got rich while the employees were made poorer. And this reminds me of that situation with Warren. It's every scenario. When you have the black box approach to economics that says, I'm just gonna do what I'm told and then fill out the application, show up and do the work, and then let my boss pay me whatever he thinks I'm worth, that puts you in a very vulnerable position in a capitalist society. At the very least, if I am going to trust that person, I need to be able to understand and validate what they're doing on my behalf. I want to understand, how are you making this money? All of our kids by the age of 12 need to understand what a functioning economic ecosystem looks like. What does that look like when the money comes in the door from the customer? How does the company decide what kind of profit margin they're going to collect? How do they decide how much they're going to pay their workers and pay their suppliers? How much are they going to decide that they're going to take as the middleman? Last story I'm gonna tell you, and then I'm gonna be done. We're gonna be done for today. I got to know Will Smith's brother Harry very well. Will Smith comes from a very smart family. I could just tell because Harry was a brilliant guy, and Harry did a lot of Will's finances. And one thing Harry told me, and I don't think Harry would mind me sharing this with you. I talked to him for several hours each time. We just really connected. It was a great conversation. I loved talking to that guy. Anyway, one thing he told me that was really interesting is he said back in the 90s, we all the big stars, Tom Cruise and all of them, they would do these deals with studios where they would get a percentage of the gross revenue that was made by the movie. So they would look at the amount of money that came in from the customer, all the money that came in through the door, and the star would just get an automatic 5 or 10%. That's it. That it was real simple. He said, but what the studio started doing was they said, no, it's not fair because we have expenses and it's really hard for us to market the movies and blah, blah, blah. So they started negotiating different kinds of deals. They started saying, instead of giving you a percentage of the gross, we want to give you a percentage of the net. We're going to give you a percentage of the profit that we make after we pay all the bills. Well, the reason that deal doesn't work is because the studios get to decide how high the bills are going to be, right? They get to decide how much they're going to charge for their management fee or their administrative expense or whatever, right? And so what happened was, what Harry told me was that Will and a lot of stars stopped doing deals with these studios. They were happy to go to places like Netflix because the studios were coming back with a bunch of BS. They were doing to them what Warren did to me. They were coming back with things like the Harry Potter franchise, right? Which was enormously successful, one of the most successful movie franchises of all time. And they literally, to this day, Warner Brothers will swear on a stack of Bibles that the Harry Potter franchise never made a profit. Sorry, hey, we did our best, but hey, all those little wizards and costumes is really expensive, and we didn't sell as many as we thought we would, and so they literally were telling the stars of the movie that this movie did not make a profit, that it actually lost money. So again, they were doing to them exactly what Warren did to me. They were imposed as the middleman, and it became a black box economics. And after the black box is done, you find out that there is no money. And most people who subscribe to black box economics end up being angry because they get screwed. Another example, I know a few rappers. I remember my buddy, one of my very good friends, is from the Ghetto Boys, Willie D. He was in my wedding, and Willie told me that there were many occasions where they would, groups would put out albums, sell millions of albums, fill up arenas all around the world, and then their agents or their managers or whoever was running, and most of these people were not black. You know who runs the music industry, and they would come back and they would say say sorry, hey, sorry, bro, there's no money left, there's no more money. And he said, you have no idea how many times he said, because they were the Ghetto Boys, they were kind of rough, and so they went to the guy's office like, we're gonna get our money, whatever, because we're the Ghetto Boys. And the secretary was like, she was like, yeah, Tupac, because you know how black people are. We give each other the juice, the grapevine. She said, Tupac was just here. He was here to get his money too. So it was like, so this is what happens, right? When and so I'm not saying that that it's anyone's fault if something bad happens to you. I'm not victim blaming on this, but what I will say is that when you don't understand the whole system and the whole process, you're definitely more vulnerable than the people who do understand the process. So if you look at entertainment, while we're sending our kids to go get lessons on how to dance and how to rap and how to be a good comedian or how to play basketball, they're sending their kids to Harvard Law School. They're sending their kids to get MBAs at Yale. They're sending their kids to learn how to do financial analysis, and then they're able to sit with your greatest movie stars because they understand the business models. So we must understand the business models of everything that we're involved with. No one will ever pay you just to work. People pay you to add value. And I think it's very important to understand the magnitude and the scope with which you're adding that value so you can make sure that you're getting what you truly deserve. Don't approach economics as a black box. That is how you get screwed. That's how you get exploited. That happens all the time in a capitalist society. Okay, so some of you were asking earlier about the stuff with the kids. With this book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, we do have flashcards for the kids that you can use if you want to train these concepts to your children. Our goal is to not just tell you what to do, but to give you the tools to actually do it. So if you go to drboycebooks.com, first off, you can write this down. If you use the code word book club, you can get 30% off anything in the store. So that's drboycebooks.com. And then also, if you want to find the 10 Commandments flashcards, let me see if I can find a link. Because there's actually a bundle where you can get the flashcards and the study guide and the workbook and everything else. So we have plenty, all that stuff is available for you. So let me grab a link here and I'll just take you to a page that actually has all of our flashcards for kids. It's kind of a weird link, but I literally just searched for the words flashcards. There we go. There's a bundle there. So let me share this with you all in the chat. So you all can, if that's of interest to you, if that will help your family, it doesn't cost a whole lot of money, and it will make a big difference for the rest of your life. And let's see here. What if you have the book and the study guide? If you already have the book and the study guide, Taquana, you can buy the flashcards separately. You can buy them as a bundle and get a discount. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. We just want to make it easy for you. And what we're really trying to do is we're lobbying to be your primary source of economic education for the Black community. We're trying to show through our deep commitment to Black wealth, and we just say, hey, compare us to anybody on earth that you've ever encountered, including the university that you went to school with, and see how many other people are really just focused on Black wealth, and we're that good at it, and we're that interested in it, and we'd love to be able to help your family achieve your economic goals because you're all that we think about, and that's what we focus on. All right. So anyway, any additional resources for understanding business models? There are some other resources. Let me think about it a little bit, Christian, and I'll not a whole lot of stuff. I know that the book Traction, we have our team read the book Traction, but nothing really comes to mind in terms of business models. I guess because I just kind of knew this stuff. I can't think of books right offhand. But yeah, you can go to drboycebooks.com, and I know Powernomics is there also if you want to get Dr. Anderson's books and all that good stuff. All right, so anyway, have a good day, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. And also, if you want to join us, we do every Wednesday night, we do free Powernomics training in the Black Business School as well, every Wednesday night at 8:30. If you'd like to join us for that, you could text the word greatness to 87948. Text greatness to 87948, and you'll get an invitation to join us on Wednesday nights. And that's where we're going through Dr. Claude Anderson's books. And the reason that this stuff is so important is because when my wife and I went to see this movie Origin, where they were talking about caste systems and the origin of racism and whatever. And if you read Dr. Anderson's work, you'll find that a lot of the things that they were explaining in this movie, Dr. Anderson has dug into very extensively and helped you really understand the origins of how America became what it is. And also, more importantly, he helps you understand the origins of the economic disparities that exist in America, why white people just own everything, and also why overcoming these disparities or ways or better yet, why economic power is essential to combating things like racism. Because the best way to overcome a system is to leave the system and to build a better system. That's what I have found. It's not to figure out how to fight through the system or navigate the system, because you're basically playing, it's like playing a basketball game on somebody else's home court where they have all the referees, all the cheerleaders, the crowd is cheering for them, and the baskets are made. Their baskets are wide, your baskets are small. It's much harder to win on a court that's owned and controlled by someone else. But if you go and you create your own court in your own game, then you are shifting the advantage in your favor. And this comes from a deep commitment to Black institution building. This is something that has to occur in this generation. If we do not do this, then we're going to always have the same frustrations. Like literally the worst nightmare for Black people to have right now, in my opinion, is for your grandkids to have the same complaints that you have, for your great grandkids in the year 2100 to be complaining about the same things that you're complaining about now. And that's the nightmare we've already lived. If you go listen to a Malcolm X speech in 1962, you will hear Malcolm say things in the 1960s that are still true to this day. And let me know, give me a yes if you agree with this. If you listen to Malcolm talk, whether he's talking about politics or race or economics or business ownership, it's insanity to me that literally the same conversation he had in 1960 something could be had right now in 2024. That's a damn shame. We should not be having the same conversation 60 years later that we were having before. A lot of that's because we've been trained to hustle backwards, sit still, be hamsters on a wheel, and not move forward. I don't want to do that. I do not want to do that. I do not want in the year 2080 for our kids to be talking about the same things that we were talking about in 2024. That is literally insanity. So if you want to fix that, very simple. Number one, everybody leaves an inheritance. Everybody leaves an inheritance. Everybody builds something for their kids for the future. Everybody gets the house ready for the next generation. You get you set the table for that next generation. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. That gives them an enormous advantage. Number two, you educate them differently. You help them understand economic systems, how they work, the strategic areas they should apply their energy and their labor, not to fall for things like the black box model of economics. Like, I'm going to go apply for a job and hope this white man pay me fairly. And if he don't, I'm going to complain about it. And that's going to somehow fix it. No, that is not going to fix it. He's just going to keep exploiting you because that means you're technically stupid to him. Literally, I'm not saying that we're stupid. I'm saying that we get made stupid. Literally, why would he not? Capitalism is beastly. Capitalism has no ethics. Capitalism does not care about you. So why in the world would a person committed to capitalism somehow make up for the fact that you have chosen to remain stupid? You have chosen to keep your eyes shut. You have chosen to keep yourself in a position of being the vulnerable, okey doke, little dummy that's falling for the banana in the tailpipe every time. And I don't want to be mean when I say this. I know I sound mean. I hate to sound like this, but whatever it takes for us to get this message, we have to do this. The way that boy exploited me when I was 7, if I was still as dumb at 47 as I was at 7, and I still fell for the same tricks at 47 that I did when I was 7, and people were exploiting me all the way through that, whose fault is that? I mean, who's going to really save me from myself other than myself, or maybe somebody who really loves me enough to say, Boyce, you can't keep doing this. Boyce, look, they're playing you. Stop this. Right. So that's what we have to do. That's what I'm trying to do for you. I'm trying to say to you, like, stop this. They're playing you. I have a PhD in finance. I know more about finance than 99% of all white people. I know more about finance than 99% of all rich white people. You don't get PhD. They don't give PhDs away. They're hard as hell to get if you get a real one. If you get a really difficult PhD, my wife and I have war stories to tell you about how hard and traumatic it was to get our. My wife started her doctoral program with 5 other people. When she graduated, she was the only one left standing. I started my doctoral program with tons of other Black people I knew about. Almost none of them made it. So what I'm saying to you is that I see things in a certain way, and it's going to sound weird. It's going to sound like I'm talking from another planet. That's because I'm in this. I've been swimming in this stuff, right? And so I'm telling you, as a person who's swimming in it, you can't keep letting them play you like this. You have to figure out. You have to get your kids ready. If you do it, it becomes very easy. If you don't do it, it'll always be hard. It'll always be hard. So don't make it hard on yourself. Make it easy on yourself. Just basic little tiny things you can do that will make a massive difference. And I'm telling you, and here's the thing you can walk away with today. I'm telling you, if you implement a tiny fraction of this stuff that we're talking about here, your kids will be on level 12. Your grandkids will be killing the game. They will be so empowered, it'll be ridiculous. So, and that's what I want to see. That's my dream. That's my vision. That's the vision I hope that we can share together. We want our people to do better. All right. So anyway, I'm out of here. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you guys soon, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow morning. So have a good day. My wife is waiting on me. We got to go back to the house. All right. See you guys later.